So now we have a good understanding of how WordPress works. In this section we will deviate a little bit from WordPress stuff and we'll take a look at something interesting. What we're gonna do in this section is not required to actually create WordPress themes. However, I think it's gonna be a very useful section. I think maybe it's the most important section in this course. Remember that we haven't yet loaded any CSS or JavaScript in our theme, right? I've actually intended to postpone this step a little bit because when you're working on a big theme or a theme that you're gonna sell to people, you will probably need to have your code organized and maintainable and easy to modify. In this section we will learn how to manage packages with NPM and automate tasks like compiling Sass to CSS, minifying CSS and JavaScript, etc. And we will do that with a package called Gulp. In this lecture we'll have a very quick look on what is NPM and Gulp in case you don't know. But if you do, you can skip this one. So NPM is a package manager for JavaScript and it's used to manage JavaScript dependencies. NPM has a large online database that contains all the packages and it's called the NPM registry. And it also has a command line client in order to access the NPM registry. So how exactly does NPM work? Imagine we have the NPM registry, which contains pretty much all the packages you will need. And of course it's an online database. Now locally on your machine, you need to access this database. So imagine this is the folder of our theme. So we have the lib folder and we'll also have the index.php and the other files. I just want to emphasize on the node modules folder and the package.json file. These two will be created once we install npm in our folder. Now imagine this is our terminal or command line on Windows. If we have npm installed on our machine, now inside the folder we can run npm install and then the package name. So for example jQuery. This will pull the jQuery package from the online database into the node modules folder. So whenever you want to install or update a JavaScript plugin, we won't have to create a JS folder and then download the code and then put it in the folder manually. And if we want to update it, we will delete and replace. We can just manage everything with npm using command line interface without doing anything manually. Another important feature of npm is that if you are using a Git repository, for example, you don't have to put the node modules folder in the repository. The node modules folder will probably be a very large folder with a lot of files and folders, and it will be a pain to move it around and track it on Git and that sort of stuff. And the reason we don't need to include it in a Git repository is package.json. Package.json will keep track of plugins that you've installed in a JSON file. And it also includes the version that you want for each plugin. So once you have this file in your folder and you run npm install, npm will create the node modules folder and install the plugins included in package.json. And that's why it's pointless to have node modules in a repository. So always put a node modules folder in git ignore file. Alright, so as you can see in the npm registry, we have a package called Gulp. So this is actually the first package that we're going to use from npm, and it will help us in task automation. So Gulp is a tool for automating tasks in your development workflow. These tasks include, compiling Sass to CSS and minifying CSS, transpiling new JavaScript versions to older ones in order to support older browsers, bundling multiple JavaScript files and package them into one file, compressing images and zipping files. I think it's better to start installing npm and Gulp and see them in real life. So let's do that in the next lecture.